What do you get when you combine a booming voice, a sharp wit, and an encyclopedic knowledge of professional wrestling? You get Jim Ross, the man who defined an era. But this man had too many troubles in his life that you're going to hear about in this video. Let's get into it. In the late 90s, Jim Ross was the voice of Monday Night Raw, and his commentary was a key ingredient to the Attitude Era's success. His passionate calls, his southern drawl, and his ability to capture the intensity of the matches made him a beloved figure among fans. His signature calls like Slobber Knocker and Good God Almighty are so legendary. I mean, come on. Stop pretending you don't love him already. Beyond the commentary booth, Ross played a huge role in shaping the storylines and characters of the Attitude Era. He was instrumental in the rise of stars like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and his creative input helped to elevate the product to new heights. However, Ross's career wasn't without its controversies. Let's start with one of the toughest moments in Jim Ross's life, his battle with Bell's palsy and what happened afterward. Back in 2013, JR was hit with a diagnosis that would change his life: Bell's palsy. This condition causes temporary facial paralysis, which for a guy who works in front of cameras and behind a microphone is a big deal. Imagine being one of the most famous voices in wrestling and suddenly finding it hard to control the very thing that made you famous. That's exactly what JR was dealing with. But here's the thing. Just 2 weeks after his first Bell's palsy episode, WWE decided to let him go. There was no clear explanation, no detailed reason, just a sudden exit. Of course, when a figure as iconic as Jim Ross leaves WWE, people start talking. Fans and wrestling insiders couldn't help but wonder if WWE let him go because of his condition. After all, WWE is a company that thrives on high-energy entertainment, and some people believe they didn't want someone on air who was dealing with visible health issues. Whether that was the actual reason or not, JR's firing left a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of fans. It was a rough, unfair moment, and one of the hardest breaks in his career. JR's journey with WWE isn't just about one departure. He's actually left WWE multiple times, and most of it had to do with his frustration over creative differences. JR is a guy who's deeply passionate about wrestling, not just as a sport, but as an art form, as a storytelling medium. He's got years of experience, and he knows what works and what doesn't. So you can imagine how tough it was for him when he disagreed with WWE's creative direction. Over the years, JR watched WWE make decisions about storylines and character development that he just didn't agree with. He was also disappointed with his limited role on screen. This is Jim Ross we're talking about. Fans loved hearing him call the matches, adding that extra layer of excitement, drama, and emotion to every moment. But WWE didn't always see things the same way. They often restricted his on-air time, and he felt sidelined. So there were times when he just walked away, fed up with the direction WWE was heading in. Despite leaving multiple times, though, JR always seemed to come back. Each time fans were thrilled. His return felt like a piece of wrestling history coming back home. But these returns didn't always last. Eventually, the differences between him and WWE became too big to ignore. Now, when JR was officially outside of WWE, he didn't just stay quiet about what he thought of the company. JR has always been someone who tells it like it is, and that didn't change once he left WWE. In fact, he felt freer to speak his mind. He's publicly criticized WWE on a number of things, and he's done so in a way that's honest and insightful. He's never been one to bash for the sake of bashing. One thing JR has been particularly vocal about is WWE's handling of storylines, character development, and booking decisions. He's expressed frustration over what he saw as wasted potential, missed opportunities, and characters he felt could have been handled way better. And honestly, when someone with JR's experience and insight has something to say, people listen. His critiques, though sometimes controversial, have been respected by fans because he's seen as someone who truly cares about the quality of the product WWE is putting out. Even with all his criticism, it's clear that JR's comments weren't out of bitterness. They were more about wanting WWE to live up to its full potential. He wanted the company to thrive, and he was never afraid to call them out when he thought they were missing the mark. In a way, his critiques felt like tough love, a reminder from a legend that WWE could and should do better. Let's talk about one more area that stirred up some drama: JR's own controversial comments. As a commentator and personality in wrestling, JR's always been known for speaking his mind. He's not one to sugarcoat his opinions, which has been refreshing but also risky. Over the years, he's made comments that have ruffled a few feathers. Sometimes he's said things about particular wrestlers, sensitive topics, or situations that sparked debates and drew criticism. In today's social media-driven world, it doesn't take long for something to go viral, and JR's words have sometimes been picked apart and debated online. While not everyone agrees with everything he says, it's important to note that he's coming from a place of authenticity. JR isn't putting on a persona. He's just being himself. Sometimes that means he's bold and unfiltered, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. Even with all the ups and downs, Jim Ross has managed to stay a beloved figure in wrestling. Despite his health issues, his frustrations with WWE, and his sometimes controversial comments, JR's impact on the business is undeniable. Wrestling fans love him because he's more than just a commentator. He's a part of wrestling history, a voice that brings memories flooding back. Now let's get into his incredible career, but this segment is only for the real fans. All right, so let's rewind a bit. Jim Ross was born on January 3rd, 1952, in California, but grew up in Oklahoma. Fun fact, JR is a proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation, with family roots that go all the way back to the Trail of Tears. Growing up, he was super active in sports. He played baseball and football, and he even led his high school in a bunch of student groups and clubs. If you think he's just a guy with a microphone, think again. JR was a standout in public speaking competitions, which set him up perfectly for his future in commentary. Now, JR didn't just walk into wrestling with a headset on. He actually started in a surprising way, as a referee. While he was in college, he did some commentary on college radio, which got him noticed by a local wrestling promotion. He started reffing for NWA Tri-State and worked his way up. By the 1980s, he became a commentator for Mid-South Wrestling, and from there, his voice became a mainstay in the wrestling world. Fans couldn't get enough of his passion and his way with words. It wasn't long before JR's style was a perfect fit for the high-energy matches of the 80s wrestling scene. Then in 1993, Jim Ross got his big break. He made his debut at WrestleMania #1. That's right, one of wrestling's biggest events. This is when he joined the WWF, which we all know today as WWE. Now, the timing couldn't have been better because he quickly became a key part of WWE's Attitude Era, where stars like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and The Undertaker took over the ring. JR was right there, calling the action, making every Stone Cold Stunner or Rock Bottom sound like a moment you couldn't miss. His legendary lines like Stone Cold, are iconic and still quoted by fans everywhere. After a long career with WWE, JR surprised fans in 2019 by joining All Elite Wrestling, or AEW. Wrestling fans everywhere were hyped. It felt like hearing JR's voice on AEW was a return to classic wrestling excitement. He brought his unique style and passion with him, making AEW feel even more special. Fans old and new love hearing JR call the shots, and he's become a huge part of AEW's identity. JR's talents don't end with wrestling. He's got his own line of BBQ sauces and beef jerky called JR's Family BBQ. If you love good food, especially BBQ, then you've got to check it out. And let's not forget his podcast, Grilling JR. It's a treasure trove of wrestling stories, behind-the-scenes insights, and personal memories from JR's career. If you want to know what really goes down in the wrestling world, JR's podcast is a must-listen. So why is Jim Ross so loved by fans? It's simple. He brings pure emotion to every match he calls. When JR's on commentary, you know it's going to be intense, dramatic, and maybe even a little bit hilarious. He's like a fan with a microphone, and that's why people connect with him. You feel like you're right there in the ring with him. And through all the ups and downs, JR has stayed true to himself and to his fans, and that's something we can all admire. Jim Ross's story is nothing short of legendary. From humble beginnings in Oklahoma to becoming the voice of wrestling for generations, he's earned his spot as an absolute icon. Whether it's WWE, AEW, or his own podcast, JR brings his passion, knowledge, and love for wrestling to everything he does. So that's the story of good old JR. If you enjoyed this look back at his career, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and click that bell so you don't miss our next video. And tell us in the comments, what's your favorite JR moment? Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.